So I've been thinking about my video production lately. It's been kind of, meager. I haven't, at least for me, because usually I'm posting videos once a day or more. But lately, it's not that I haven't been thinking. I just haven't been recording it. I haven't been speaking into a camera about it. I've been watching a lot of videos on YouTube as well, and about a diversity of topics. I mean, morality, atheism, spirituality, psychology, philosophy. I think, though, I've been on this inactivism kick and, obsessing over an ism, and I'm wondering myself now, okay, that's good, but so what? What's next? What does this mean? It's time to move on, to take the next step. Well, I made a video about solipsism when I was driving in a car, and I didn't really argue why inactivism wasn't solipsism. I just kind of asserted that it wasn't, gave a couple of reasons, but I didn't really explain them. And I wanted to revisit that because I basically argued that the representational approaches to understanding cognition, the computational approaches, they are inherently solipsistic, whereas the inactive approach tries to get out of this situation, this philosophical trap or metaphysical doubt, which gives rise to this ego, which has representations displayed before it and can decide which ones to pay attention to. That this is the solipsistic theory, the unnaturalizable theory, the unscientific theory, and the inactive theory. It isn't a theory any longer. It can't admit or a priori assume that we can take a step back out of our experience and observe it as if we were in the audience, not one of the actors, not a person participating in reality, but someone just standing back and seeing the whole, rather than acting as a part in the show. They're back in the audience and they can see the outside perspective. They have a view from nowhere. The inactive approach just questions whether or not this is a valid presupposition. Is there such a place as nowhere? If there is, it can't be made sense of with our human language. I mean, mathematics has described a non-verbal world that is real, that corresponds to empirical evidence. We have no idea what it means, though. We have about 10,000 different interpretations of what it could mean, but most of them have no possibility of being tested, and testing is just an inherent limit of the quantum world. You just can't run a test without interfering with what you're trying to measure. So, what do descriptions amount to in this type of an environment? If we think of cognition as representational, then a description is what I perceive, what the thinking ego in each brain, the observer of the representations, the central processor, that is what observes the world and can objectify it and represent it in some kind of a informational language. And you can see how this cuts each individual brain off from every other individual brain, because the activity of consciousness, of representation of a world and cognition, is an individual thing. It's what a brain does. So this brain represents the world a certain way based on its own representations, and everybody else's brain does the same thing. So we're before we are beings existing with one another from the representational perspective. We are individuals, cut off from the outside, but for these representations of it. There's a profound difference assigned to the brain of the person and the world itself. The inactive perspective, to get back into those isms, wouldn't presuppose that there need be or could be a difference between the observer and the observed. Description is not entirely passive. When you describe the world, you're striking a certain pose before, or taking an attitude towards it. You're not just standing back and objectively pronouncing upon what it is in its essence. You're making a call towards it and asking it to obey your command, and it could choose not to, or it could do something you never expected it would have, because as soon as an audience member stands up and starts shouting out at the actors on stage about what it is that they're doing, the actors are going to respond, and all of a sudden that audience member becomes a part of the show, which has just introduced a new character, who formerly may have been absent, but now has, as soon as he made a move to describe, became part of this intersubjective space and part of the show of people enacting meanings within a community of common thought. So, which theory is solipsistic? I think the representational approach. And that's why it seems to lead to moral relativism and, scares a lot of, I guess, communitarian types, people who think that we do need a common system of values in order to sustain any semblance of the civilized order. Of course, civilized may not end up being the most efficient and sustainable method of human existence on the earth, but it all depends on what we mean by civil. It all depends.